You back?
Glad to be back.
You know, I was thinking about something. So my son, his mother's Italian.
Okay.
And so when his birthday, he gets to say what he wants for dinner. And my son's always like tiramisu. And I've always contended it's the greatest thing on the planet to eat. But when people list their favorite desserts, you just forget about it. You go ice cream and cookies and cake. Nobody ever says tiramisu. And I contend you can do it with coffee. You can do it by itself. It's the greatest thing, the greatest tasting thing ever created on the planet.
Strong.
It reminds me, I know I love analogies of Steph Curry. And that's where I want to start. Steph Curry, been almost 2 years since he's been in a playoff game, June of 2019. So he's been out of NBA fans' consciousness. And they're not thinking about Steph. He's not in the big playoff games. And didn't see him in the bubble. It was a year before. Where's Steph been? Oh, he came back last night. He was finally back on television. I don't know. Dominated the All-Star weekend. Won the three-point shooting contest and essentially decided the basketball game between the world's best players. Giannis wasn't the MVP. 13 of his 16 shots were like dunks and layups. Please. You know, 2 weeks ago, LeBron came out. He's like, yeah, Devin Booker is the most disrespected player in the game. Bruh, LeBron, I love you. Guys never won a playoff series. Come on, LeBron. Steph Curry, there's been this weird resentment around Steph Curry. You know, he grew up with money. He's not he's a little finessey. He's got a little shake, but he's not real physical. He doesn't dunk. Yeah. Everybody loves these hyper-athletic point guards, Derrick Rose and John Wall and Russell Westbrook. They don't make anybody better and they can't shoot. How about a new rule on our show? If you're a 6'4" guard and can't shoot, go play football. I'm not interested in you. Devin Booker, he's not the most valuable guy on his own team. It's Chris Paul. Nobody would dispute he's great, but I've always thought Steph Curry's fascinating. We just forgot about him for 2 years. But when he won that unanimous MVP, the first ever, there was this weird resentment around him. Remember this a couple years ago, guys were talking about their favorite players, and everybody's like, Westbrook. I'm like, can't shoot. It doesn't make anybody better. It doesn't make anybody better. Steph Curry shooting is better than anybody else in the world at anything they do in basketball. That's how good he is. Okay, think about this. Who are the three guards that are aging well? Dame, Steph Curry, and Chris Paul. Why? Two of them are great shooters. The third's a great leader and a good mid-range shooter. And there's always been this weird resentment about Steph. I mean, I think fans like him and kids love him, but the only thing he really stinks at is shoe design. Outside of that, he's the best shooter in the history of the world. He's the best ball handler I've ever seen, and he's probably the best superstar teammate. Oh, yeah, he's got 3 trophies. And none of those hyper-athletic guards that are on the cover of Slam magazine have any trophies. He's got 3. 1 before KD, 2 after KD, and this year, with virtually no help, he's second best year ever, 30 points a game. But for some reason, when you start naming great players, I don't know what it is. He just gets left off. I mean, every time there's a list, it's Kawhi, it's Giannis, it's Embiid, it's KD, it's LeBron, all great players. And, Steph, well, he shoots. I don't know, it's crazy, but isn't that the league now? Well, he's not a great defensive player. Who is in the NBA not named Kawhi Leonard? I mean, seriously, who's a great... Harden plays no defense. Kyrie plays no defense. Luka plays no defense. Zion plays no defense. LeBron does what he's in the mood in June. So I thought it was great that the guy that was out of our consciousness for a couple of years comes back and takes over the weekend. He's probably the weakest all-star there, probably has the smallest bench press. He doesn't really dunk, although he got one this weekend. I know he's kind of finesse. His shoes look like something a pharmacist would wear. Totally, I'm all in on all of that. But I love the fact that he dominated the weekend with the world's best basketball players. And I love LeBron James' tweet yesterday. Finally got to share the floor with Steph. Well overdue, loved every second. Greatest shooter all time. Changed how the game is played by himself alone. Respect beyond words. Thank you. Finally, the best player who gets it now gets it. All right, this is something. And we're going to have a lot of talk this week because now we're moving into late first week of March, free agency in a couple of weeks. According to Greg Bedard, he's a real reporter, a journalist. He said on his podcast, Jimmy Garoppolo, by far and away, represents New England's plan A at quarterback. So officially, New England has a plan. Now, their plan is a quarterback on another team that's not a free agent, so this is essentially tampering. This reminds me of the Knicks' many attempts to get KD, Kyrie, and LeBron. But Greg Bedard's a legitimate reporter, and when you got Marcus Mariota, Cam Newton, who was and a fifth best quarterback in the draft, Jimmy Garoppolo feels pretty good. And I also think, we know the book on Garoppolo. He was supposed to start 4 straight games in New England when Brady had Deflategate. He was hurt by the second game. That's kind of his history. He's also been hurt in week 2, twice with the Niners and once in week 3. But this makes sense. The reason it makes sense, because I counted this morning, 4 rumors that San Francisco's not in love with Garoppolo. 4 different stories have made Twitter with legitimate reporters. What's the rule on this show? Stuff gets out when somebody wants it out. So San Francisco's telling everybody, we're moving off Jimmy G. And the second thing is, New England's fairly desperate. Their plan A, according to Bedard, is a guy in another team that's not a free agent. So I think, and here's the interesting thing, and this is what I think really makes the NFL the best sport in the country. Even though you can seem hopeless, you're never really that far away. And I'll give you an example of New England. Now, we know they cannot draft wide receivers. They can't. They just can't do it. Belichick's hole in his game. Every great coach has a hole. That's his. That is his. And we also know they don't have a functional tight end since Gronk left. And we also know Cam struggled to basically throw the ball past 10 yards down the field and complete it. But you could make 3 moves, all completely, utterly doable, and New England would absolutely be a playoff team. Let's start with Garoppolo. If Garoppolo, behind a very good New England offensive line, stays upright for 14 to 16 games, they have a ton of cap space. You go get wide receiver Allen Robinson from Chicago, a tremendous player, and then you move up in the draft from the 15th spot. Let's say you got to get to 8. You don't have to get to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. But if you can get to 7 and 8 and you draft the tight end Kyle Pitts, tomorrow I would say New England's a playoff team. And this is the essence of the NFL. New England last year, we're watching them, and it's like, God, Brady's winning Super Bowls. This is kind of pathetic. They get all those guys that opted out back in. Mike Lombardi, former guy in the building with New England, said in a podcast yesterday, this is really doable. John Lynch, the Niners GM, likes Sam Darnold a lot. You can get him for a second pick. He's more athletic with better raw tools than Jimmy Garoppolo and doesn't have his injury history. Now we get a story that New England is absolutely plan A, far and away from Greg Bedard. Jimmy Garoppolo is their guy. So I buy this reporter. I buy this story. I think it makes New England, if they can go get a free agent receiver and move up slightly to get that great tight end in the draft, they're a playoff team. I mean, they're not going to win Super Bowls, but they're a playoff team. And that is not as embarrassing for Belichick. You make the playoffs. Belichick in a playoff game always has a chance to out-coach somebody and win it. You're not going to win 3 or 4 playoff games. They don't have the personnel. So this feels like a real story. I would not be shocked. Sam Darnold has a real market. Washington does not have a quarterback. Chicago, according to a story this morning, wants Russell Wilson. I don't know how they get him. They just don't have the quarterback, the pieces. Virtually impossible. I think it'd be a great fit. I don't know how they get him. And San Francisco now, according to Bedard, Mike Lombardi, Darnold, Garoppolo moves east. Darnold moves west, where Lynch likes him. We got real stories. All right. Also, Joy and I often talk about we like aggressive general managers in all our sports. Dodgers go get Mookie Betts. Brooklyn has done a really good job. They went and got Blake Griffin. You get rewarded for being aggressive. What you don't get, the Green Bay Boston Celtics feeling, which is, 401k, don't buy stuff until you need it. You live in this lane. No reason to go in free agent market. That stuff makes you competent. It doesn't make you great. And great is usually going for it with Mookie Betts and going for it, Matt Stafford, going for it, elevating yourself to a new level. Here's one move that sounds great, but I don't buy it at all because I think the player's really special, but I think the trade proposition, the people who don't think a guy is great, is actually greater. So this is a go-for-it move. I don't like it all. That's coming up. A year ago, probably don't consider myself a boot guy, and then you go and look at the website Tecovas has, and you see what they have. Men's and women's boots and travel bags, belts, wallets. Great site, by the way. And we're all going back out and about in 2021. Such promising news with the vaccines in America. It's like 2 to 2.5 million people per day now are being vaccinated. That is incredibly promising. A lot of compliments when you put the boots on. Whether you're heading back into the office, got a backlog of weddings to attend, just want to catch up with friends, get out, go for a meal, you get free shipping with Tecovas. They deliver quality right to your door. Free returns and exchanges means they're confident about their product.